The rain fell in torrents that evening, like the world itself was weeping for her. Every droplet mirrored the ache in her heart, a sorrow so deep it felt as though it had etched itself into her very bones. She stood on the edge of the old bridge, the one where laughter once mingled with a gentle rustling of the river below. Memories came rushing back like an unstoppable tide, memories of a love that had seemed eternal, now shattered by loss, betrayal, and the unforgiving passage of time. In that moment, the city lights blurred into streaks of gold and silver through the storm, and she wondered if she would ever feel whole again. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the magic of love rekindled, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, because stories like these remind us all that hope is never truly lost. Amelia had always been a believer in fairy tales. As a child, she had dreamed of the kind of love that could weather any storm, a love that felt larger than life, magical yet real. But life, as it often does, had a way of breaking the illusions of youth. Her first love, Daniel, had been everything she thought she needed: charismatic, attentive, and tender. For years, they had shared whispered promises beneath starlit skies, holding onto dreams as if they were lifelines. Then, without warning, he left, not with anger, not with a fight, but with silence. A move to another city, a whispered goodbye over the phone, and Amelia was left in the echo of their memories, her heart heavy with unanswered questions. She tried to rebuild, of course. There were books to read, cafes to frequent, friends to console her. Yet in the quiet moments between breaths, the ache returned, relentless and unforgiving. Every street corner seemed to hold a memory. Every song that played in the background carried the weight of 100 could-have-beens. Time was supposed to heal, she thought, but it only seemed to deepen the void. She questioned herself endlessly. Was she too fragile, too trusting? Had she misread the signs? And in those dark nights, the world seemed impossibly lonely, the laughter of others a cruel reminder of her solitude. Then came the day that changed everything. It wasn't marked by fireworks or grand announcements. There was no fanfare, only a small, unassuming moment that seemed to hum with quiet possibility. Amelia had wandered into a quaint little bookshop tucked away on a cobbled street she had never noticed before. Rain still clung to her hair, and the scent of wet earth and old paper filled her senses. As she wandered between the shelves, her fingers brushing over leather-bound covers, she felt a strange, almost imperceptible pull toward the back of the shop. There, sitting at a small wooden table with a steaming cup of tea, was someone who made her heart stutter in a way she hadn't felt in years. He looked up as she approached, and for a heartbeat, time itself seemed to pause. His eyes, a warm, inviting shade of hazel, held a gentleness that made her chest tighten. He smiled, not the practiced smile of a stranger, but the quiet, soulful kind that seemed to recognize pain and offer comfort without words. "Are you looking for something specific?" he asked softly. Amelia shook her head, unable to find her voice. She didn't need a book. She needed perhaps a sign, something to remind her that love could exist beyond loss. His name was Lucas. A writer by trade, he carried the air of someone who had lived through heartbreak himself and emerged with a cautious hope. They spoke that afternoon about everything and nothing, the conversation flowing like a river that had waited patiently for its moment to return. There was laughter, too, the kind that reaches deep inside and reminds you that your heart can still feel light. Amelia left the shop that day with a borrowed novel, but more importantly, with a flutter of curiosity she hadn't felt in years. Life, however, was never as simple as meeting someone extraordinary in a serendipitous moment. Amelia's heart had been bruised, her trust fractured, and every attempt to open it felt like a fragile bridge over a chasm. She found herself analyzing every word Lucas said, every gesture, every pause. Was this just a fleeting spark, a temporary distraction from her grief? Or was it the first fragile tendril of something real, something lasting? Doubts whispered insidiously, feeding on her fear that she would only end up broken again. Lucas, for his part, seemed to understand the delicate balance between closeness and caution. He never rushed, never pushed. He simply existed in the space where she was learning to breathe again, offering quiet encouragement and steady presence. They began to share walks along the riverbanks, the same river where Amelia had once felt all was lost. They watched sunsets that painted the sky in fiery oranges and soft pinks, and in those moments, the past's shadows felt lighter, more distant. She began to feel the impossible, a flicker of hope, a whisper of trust, a gentle return to joy. Yet, as life often reminds us, love never grows without challenge. Amelia's past was never far behind. One rainy evening, as she returned to the bookshop where she had first met Lucas, she found herself face to face with Daniel. He had returned to the city, older, more contemplative, and his eyes carried the kind of regret that could shatter even the strongest resolve. He spoke carefully, words dripping with apology and longing, and for a moment, Amelia felt herself caught between two worlds, the haunting pull of what once was, and the tender possibilities of what could be. The choice wasn't simple. It never is when the heart has been fractured and is learning to beat anew. Amelia spent restless nights wrestling with memories, replaying moments that once brought her laughter and pain in equal measure. She thought of the nights she cried herself to sleep, the hope she had buried, the small victories of courage she had claimed each day just to survive. And then she thought of Lucas, the man who had never demanded her past be erased, who had simply offered a steady hand and an open heart. It was in that realization, soft, almost imperceptible, that Amelia found clarity. Love wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about finding someone willing to walk with you despite it. It was about trust rebuilt, laughter rediscovered, and the quiet moments that made life feel magical again. When she met Lucas the next morning, rain still falling softly around them, she didn't speak of her doubts. She didn't need to. Her eyes, shining with unshed tears, said everything. She had chosen hope. She had chosen the possibility of love again. Their journey wasn't instantaneous bliss. It never is in the truest stories. There were moments of insecurity, echoes of old fears, and days when life's pressures threatened to dim the fragile light they nurtured together. But with each challenge, they learned more about patience, empathy, and the profound beauty of companionship. Amelia discovered that opening one's heart after heartbreak required bravery, a willingness to be vulnerable, and an unwavering belief that life could surprise you when you least expected it. The seasons changed, painting the city in golds, whites, and vibrant greens. Amelia and Lucas created rituals: morning coffees by the window, evening walks through quiet streets, reading to each other by candlelight when the world felt cold and unkind. They celebrated small victories, embraced imperfections, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, Amelia's heart healed. The scars of the past remained, but they were no longer chains. They were reminders of resilience, proof that the heart could endure and emerge wiser, softer, yet infinitely stronger. It was on a spring morning, with cherry blossoms fluttering like pink snow around them, that Lucas took her hand in his. The warmth of his touch, the certainty in his gaze, and the gentle strength in his voice spoke of a love not born of grand declarations, but of quiet, enduring devotion. In that moment, Amelia understood that finding love again wasn't about recreating what she had lost. It was about embracing something new, something honest, and profoundly beautiful. It was about discovering that fairy tales do exist, but they are written not in fleeting magic, but in the courage to believe in love once more. Amelia's journey from heartbreak to hope became her own kind of fairy tale, not the perfect story of childhood dreams, but a story infinitely more real. A story of resilience, redemption, and the extraordinary power of the human heart to love again. And as she walked through life with Lucas hand in hand, she knew that the past, while never forgotten, had paved the way for a love that was deeper, richer, and more tender than she had ever imagined. If this story touched your heart, moved you, or reminded you of hope and second chances, please engage with this video. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps us continue to bring you stories that celebrate the beauty of life, love, and resilience. And before you leave, we'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments what moment in the story made you believe in love again, because every story is brighter when hearts connect. The world, Amelia realized, is full of unexpected magic. Sometimes it hides in the gentle smile of a stranger, the warmth of a steady hand, or the quiet persistence of hope. Finding love again isn't about forgetting the past or erasing pain. It's about daring to open your heart, trusting in the journey, and believing that the most extraordinary chapters of life often come after the darkest nights. In love, as in life, endings are just beginnings in disguise, and sometimes the fairy tales we yearn for most are those we create ourselves, with courage, kindness, and the unwavering belief that love is always worth finding again.